Good evening. Welcome to our Consolidated Innovative Nuclear Research Community Outreach Program this evening. Thank you for being with us. We're coming to you from Washington, D.C. at the American Nuclear Society meeting here at the Marriott Wardman Park Hotel. So we have a live audience here in D.C. and of course you connected to us through the webinar. Again, thank you for being with us. My name is John Gilligan. I'm the director of the NEUP Integration Office, and tonight we're pleased to have a variety of experts that will discuss a number of issues with you out there associated with the CINR program this year. Of course, there are some changes this year associated with CINR, and we want to bring those to your attention. So we're going to have a number of talks both on the new FOA itself, as well as a number of post-award issues that have come up over the years. And we want to inform you about those post-award issues, and we have experts in each of those areas to present to you. So without further ado, I'm going to ask Greg Belay, who's our manager of the integration office out at Idaho National Lab, to come up and start the discussion of the FOA. Greg, thank you.
John, thank you. Just as a reminder, we are broadcasting live, so we'll be taking questions from the audience. We're also broadcasting as a webinar, so if you have questions, this is the mechanism you'll use to ask those questions. This session is also being taped so that individuals who can't be here or otherwise be part of it, you can watch it at a later point in time as a record on the computer on the net. So the issues that we have this evening are largely based on the voice of the community. We've heard you. We understand that there are several issues that have changed. Some of them, although they haven't changed, they're just now coming up in post-award. And of course, this year has been very challenging and different for us in terms of rolling out the FOA and getting it to you. I'd like to reflect the heavy lift that NE leadership at a very senior level did to get this FOA on the street. And to make that happen, we had to accommodate some changes. All of the projects are anticipated to start on October 1st, and that is not a change. But to make that happen, we have had to have other changes. So the reason and the tempo of the FOA are still the same. It's consolidated opportunity, presents all of the funding opportunities at once, such that you as an investigator can take a concerted effort in making your applications. It does allow the integration of deadlines that enables DOE to have better planning in terms of their research portfolio, and it presents opportunities to request funding for multiple program elements. The example of that would be NSUF access, co-joined with R&D. Here's some important due dates. I think a large majority of the community has already seen these. We did release the FOA on October 19th. The original work scopes were released on August the 3rd. Now those original work scopes as released have been redacted for those that have been changed. We do have 2 new work scopes. We did socialize those in a webinar last week, and that should be out on the net soon for viewing. If you have an NSUF access request, you will have that document due on November 8th, 2017. That's just around the corner. That's going to happen for NSUF 1, NEAMS 2, and NSUF 2. With that exception, there are no pre-applications. If you are planning on participating in the infrastructure FOA, we list that here as a professional courtesy in your planning. Those will be due on November 30th. We anticipate extending invitations for those who are applying to NSUF 1 or NEAMS 2. If you do not get invited, you may not submit a full application. That is not a change from prior years with pre-applications, but this is an access request. We have representatives from NSUF in the room that can answer questions on that document as needed. You will have a statement of work due for NSUF 1 and NEAMS 2 on January 12th. all of the full R&D applications, with the exception of NSUF2, will be due on January the 23rd. The NSUF2 application will be out of phase. It will be delayed so that we can get on with the business of the full R&D call. The NSUF2 applications, we anticipate those coming out on or about March 20th of 2018. The final statement of work for NSUF2 will be due on April 26th, and NSUF2 applications on May 17th. This is the consistent information on the front of the FOA. A courtesy copy can be found at neup.gov. The full and final copy, as always, grants.gov. Here's a summary of updates for NEUP and Need Crosscut. As I said before, no pre-applications. We're going to take you straight to full applications to save that time. There are 2 new work scopes in Appendix A. Do know that those are socialized by the program managers with overviews and updates a week ago. Those presentations should be out soon. This year, we have no IRP on offer for you as a community. We thought that perhaps there would be one in August. That has been rescinded. There is no IRP. PIs are only eligible to compete for those awards that they may win. That is not a change. You can think of it this year as if everyone is coming into the process as an invited applicant. So just think in those terms. It's no different than years past, but you will have limitations on the number of applications that you can complete. And we anticipate that these projects will begin October 1st. For NSUF, NSUF1, NEAMS 2, and NSUF2 require an access request. That's an augmented document that is a combination of the old pre-application and a letter of intent. NSUF2, that will be out of phase. It's going to be delayed with respect of the remains of the FY 2018 process. Same eligibility restrictions here as in the NUP section. NSUF, including NEAMS 2. So those NEAMS 2 SOW submittals must be submitted online, and they'll then be attached to your application. So you will already have your access request in. You'll find your application in that mix. You'll submit your statement of work, and that will come to us as a package that will move forward for review. And those 2 are slated to begin on October 1st. For those who have questions about eligibility, this is a quick flow chart that's intended to help you navigate that. You can find this on our website at neup.gov. You may basically have 3 funded applications at any point in time. The cutoff date for your complete projects would be December 31st, 2018. So on January 1st, 2019, if you have 2 ongoing projects, you may only compete for 1 new project this year. If you have any questions on what you hold as an investigator or where those projects are, we'll have some contact information. The information is also in the FOA. Give us a call. We'd love to help you through that. All of the Appendix B applicants, you are limited to 3 applications per institution per work scope area. If you're a university PI, those applications count against your total. No cost extensions that end before December 31st, 2018 are not subject to this restriction. If you have a no cost extension, you are ineligible to apply. DOE does have a mechanism for unsolicited applications. We've heard your voice in the past. Some of you feel that you have ideas that are just not encompassed by the FOA. This is the process that you use to submit those. This is a formal process that's not new. It's been in existence for decades. There are some attributes attributed to those applications. I won't read them to you, but do know that these will be submitted online to NETL, the NETL, and they'll start stepping through their process to adjudicate these applications. That's everything that's new. We wanted to be short in that regard. I'm going to introduce Aaron Gravel, who has a leadership position with the Department of Energy Idaho office. Aaron helps us in terms of our processes, procurements, and is one of the authorities at ID in terms of helping us in that intersection of procurement as it relates to peer review, spirit, and intent. And that's a very busy intersection that has a lot of consequences, so this would be a great time to ask questions and have a dialogue. Aaron?
Thanks, Greg. Well, it's great to be here tonight, and certainly we hope to share some information with you that's going to be helpful. There's a few things that we're going to talk about, and the first one that we're going to discuss is the PI move request policy. We've had a few requests for PIs that have received awards that it's inevitable, right? You're going to get an award, and in the middle of your award, you're gonna find yourself wanting to be employed somewhere different than where you are already. So how does that process work? How do you take that work with you, or can you take that work with you? And we're going to talk a little bit through that. There's also a process, and there's not too much difference between the pre-award and post-award process in PI move or transfer requests, and in maintaining or keeping your awards, or being able to continue to work on your awards. So I'll try to point out the differences. They're very subtle, and there's not very many of them, but we'll talk about that. We've had a few requests over the last 4 or 5 years, and it seems like each year there's one or two that will trickle in, and procurement is responsible for sending out information to help you understand how that process should flow. And as I've gone back and I've done some investigation, there's 3 different occasions that I looked at, and there was some information that we had received that there were some inconsistencies in what those options were. As I went back and looked at the emails and did a little investigation, nothing that was sent out was inaccurate. It was all correct. It just didn't include all of the available options. And that's what we wanted to change and make clear to the community, was that a consistent message on what the options were if you found yourself in that situation. How do I change the slides? Just the down there. Okay. Some of the, as you all know, our FOA, the CINR R&D FOA, is a competitive FOA. And we certainly are very careful to make sure that we follow the financial assistance regulations that are out there to help us in developing that FOA. Those regulations, just for your reference, are 2 CFR 200, and also as amended, 2 CFR 200 is the base OMB guidelines for financial assistance, and as amended, 2 CFR 910, which is the DOE supplement to 200. So we do follow those guidelines very closely, and because we are in a competitive space, all the funding decisions are made on a competitive basis, obviously. So in our excuse me. The other point to make here is that we have awards that obviously PIs are writing the applications to these awards. All of you are spending a lot of time and energy in putting these awards together. But the regulation tells us that when you do that and you're attached to a university, the university is the applicant, not the individual. And that's just kind of the way it is. I don't know if there's any other way to say it, but the application and the award belongs to the university. So that's one of the drivers here in some of the information that we're going to get into in just a few minutes. Let's move on. So I think pre-award is pretty self-explanatory. Here's a slide that tries to outline that there's 3 phases to pre-award. Pre-award is basically everything prior to award release. The way that you go about making the request to DOE for making any request for PI changes is pretty much the same, and we'll get into that here in just a few minutes. For post-award, so the first 2 bullets apply to both pre and post, and there was a couple of changes on the slides here. I apologize that they didn't get added. So the first 2, so changing the PI specified in the award document, or that's of course post-award, but for pre-award it would be the changing the PI specified in the award application. There's a process that we would have to follow. Also, another qualifier for pre or post would be anytime we would add or delete a co-PI or any change in key personnel that would require prior DOE approval. The next 2 bullets apply to post-award. If you, as a PI on a project, will be removed from the project for a 3-month period of time, or a total of 25% reduction in time that you had planned to spend on the award, that would also require, by regulation, a change in PI request. And also, if you were to do any type of sub-award or sub-awarding or changing in sub-awards, that would also require some type of approval and from DOE. The last note there, when we're in a procurement space, the final approval, and there's a lot of people that look at these different requests that may come in, but the final approval rests with the contracting officer. And that's specific and by regulation because of where we sit in the procurement space. So it's just something important to remember, that you can talk to your TPOCs, you can talk to national technical directors, TPOs, federal program managers, a variety of different people. But at the end of the day, they all are supposed to get together and collaborate and talk about whatever the requests are. A lot of that's done through email. And the DOE contracting officer makes the final decision there. So here's where we talk about a few of the options, and this is if we get information from a university and it's the email is stating that Professor so and so is going to be, we've been informed Professor is going to move to University B, and I use a University A and a University B illustration here. We send a note or an email to the university listing a few options. Again, the options are by regulation and by policy on what the university can do. And the most common option that's selected is option 2. So I'll kind of start there. University A requests approval from the DOE to assign a new PI at University A. The university would also then assign the existing PI or ask to have the existing PI at University A. Moving to University B, be assigned as a co-PI, and also that University B now be added as a sub-award or a sub-awardee to the award. That's the most common selection that we see. In fact, I would say that there's a couple of other ones that have been selected at the end of the day. The universities have always reached back to us and said, we'll take option 2. And that seems to work out fairly well. You can see there that here work scope and funding can be reassigned to University B through the sub-award. The new lead PI at University involvement is negotiated with the exiting PI most of the time, with university involvement, of course, and our new lead PI now at University A, it has responsibility still for oversight of the award, as they are the prime awardee. We can't remove that. That's just part of policy, because that award was specifically to the university. We're in that competitive phase. It has to stay with University A. There is no option of moving it away from University A entirely and giving it to University B. But all of that can be negotiated and should be negotiated between the incoming and outgoing PI and co-PI and so. The other two options here, option one, just so that you know, universities are entitled to keep the award. They don't have to let it go. They don't have to ask or request to have that university option added. I've never seen it done, but it's in the regulation. It says that they're allowed to do that. I don't know if I will ever see that, but I hope I don't. But it is an option. It is put in the document that we sent to the universities. If for some reason there's a PI that's submitted and it's not acceptable to DOE, the individual is not acceptable, then the university is then asked to reevaluate. A lot of times they'll just immediately go to option two. Option three is also communicated to the universities, and that for pre-award space, and the request comes in, the university does have the option to cancel the award and say, we don't want to deal with this, and we're not prepared to move forward with any decisions. We're just going to cancel the application at that point. And then if it's a post-award, universities always have the option at any time during the award, during post-award, to walk away from the award without any penalty. That's just a part of financial assistance regulations as a whole. We don't encourage that, of course, and hope that doesn't happen. But it is an option that's available. The alternate option at the bottom, and I've seen it selected a couple of different times, and each time I've seen that selected, it has not worked. So that's why I put the note in there. Please make sure that if you do select that option, if you find yourself in that space and that's an option that you would want to entertain, that works at your university, that it gives you all of the rights and privileges and the ability to do the work that you need to do in that status. The two situations that I know of so far, like I said, did not work, and we ended up moving to an option two. So option two seems to be either the primary selection or the one that everybody falls back to, and it just seems to work great. So how do we do this? A formal written request must be sent to the contract specialist for the award, and the contracting specialist information can be provided to you if you find yourself in this situation. The request should contain several items, but pretty common sense, just a good, strong justification for the requested change, whatever it might be. Regardless of whether it's a sub award request or whatever the request may be, and that usually funnels through the contracting officer. Pretty much as far as sub awards, you would want to also submit a budget justification, the capabilities, everything that's a part of your original application would be submitted in support of that sub award, that new sub award. There in the second bullet, it will be reviewed by the contract specialist, the contracting officer, and the technical project officer, and just making sure that it still fits whatever is being requested, still fits the boundaries of the award. And the last one, if it's rejected or accepted, either one, if it is rejected, there's an opportunity to rewrite. In regard to subawards, typically there's no action with subawards. So if you have a situation where you're a PI and you have a subaward or a co-PI that is leaving their institution, typically we encourage that the subaward remain in place. If it's the individual that is important to the work that you're doing, then you can certainly go through the request and submittal process of getting that sub canceled and then getting permission to sub at a new location. But if it's the facility that you're after, then of course we just encourage you to allow, just make a request for change in key personnel and to add a new sub, or not new sub, new co-PI at that university. So just real quick in summary, again, we're just trying to get consistent in the message that we're sending out this year. Believe it or not, we had 7 of these situations that came to us, and it was, there's a lot involved when you have active PIs that that have three awards that they're prime on, and several that they may be subbing with, and they're trying to make all these moves. And when you have 7 of those, I mean, that just adds for a lot of award administration, and it becomes a very busy process. So it was part of the driver of trying to get a consistent message out there. I didn't realize that there wasn't a consistent message. And anyways, we wanted to make sure that the process was pretty clear. It's not a difficult process, but certainly just we wanted to be consistent with that. You can find all of the information that you need at the NEAP.gov website. We have this. I guess these slides will be available there, and some additional information. We have a sample post-award letter and pre-award letter that would go, that we at DOE, your contract specialist, would actually send to the university saying, hey, we've been notified and understand that PI is leaving your institution. Here are your options, and walk them through some of the steps. The request should always flow through the university, because that's who DOE is going to look to. So if we do get an email from the PI, we're not trying to dismiss it in any way, but it is because it's an award to the university. We have to communicate through the university, and usually through the business office. I can tell you that we've made an effort that anytime we're communicating with the business office, we always CC the PI, just so that you're informed and know that we're doing that. And with that, I'm going to, we'll take questions later if you have any in this area. But, oh, okay. So we can talk for a few minutes about no-cost extension. So there's a slide that we have. It's, I think this is about the 4th slide down in this presentation that shows how many awards that total we've had. I think it starts at FY9 and goes through 14. And then it shows you how many no-cost extensions have been awarded. And maybe you would be surprised. I was kind of surprised with how many there were, but certainly it's allowable within the program. And the no-cost extensions on existing any funded projects, the deadline for requesting those is April 15th. And after April 15th, if you'd like to submit, you can submit again after October 1st. There is one no-cost time extension request that may be granted for up to 12 months, pending review and approval. No more than one no-cost extension will be allowed. We've had certain situations where we've had a no-cost extension that's come in for 3 or 4 months, and not understanding the policy. They've immediately come back and realized that they shorted themselves a little bit in time, and they wanted to come back and request the year. And unfortunately, once that one no-cost time extension is in place, you can't go to a second. Regulation doesn't allow a second no-cost time extension, so we can't issue it. It's a very, there's another process that's entailed, but it's a very difficult process. And to my knowledge to date, program management headquarters has been reluctant to press forward with that process just because of the difficulty of getting that approved. A PI with a no-cost extension past December 31st of the current year will be disqualified from competing for a new award, and that would be December 31st, 17 for all of our 18 CINR awards. If you do have a no-cost extension request, there's a template that we'd ask you to complete, and you can find that at the neap.gov website. And we'd ask that you send that to both myself and Nick Case at INL. Some of the policy drivers for no-cost extension. DOE, there's efforts to integrate the university research portfolio with direct program work. It's compromised by no-cost extensions, as you can imagine. And to enable integration, work needs to be completed on schedule to deliver results into the program to potentially define the next phase of NEAP work scope priorities. So late results create a situation where university research becomes disconnected from current program priorities. So it's really just we encourage you to try to get the work done on time. But if you need that one no-cost extension, we're certainly able and willing to review it and get it approved for you. And then no-cost extension request and the justifications for the requests are of high interest to upper DOE NE management. And here's the slide that shows from FY9 to FY14. The number of awards are in blue. No-cost extension requests are, and these would be approved NCE requests, are in red. So you can see that there's several. With these awards being in a 3-year cycle, you can imagine that just the administrative action that it takes to keep 3 years of cycle of awards that are in no cost extension, as well as new awards that are coming through. It's quite the heavy lift. So again, by regulation, you can have one, but just one. So, all right. Okay, that concludes my presentation. With that, I'll introduce Joanne Hanners. Joanne is from the DOE Idaho Operations Office, and she's the contracting officer over the NEAP program, and has some information to share with us on reporting requirements.
Thanks, Aaron. As Aaron said, I'm Joanne Hanners with DOE, and I am contracting officer. Can you hear me better? Okay. And today we also will have Nick Case available to answer any of your questions for reporting. And then we've got Dave Yarwood here with Allegheny, and he will be giving a detailed presentation after mine on all the reporting. So we'll all be available for questions once we've been completed here. So I know you're all wondering what happens after you get that selection notice. It kind of, nothing happens. You know, okay, I've been notified, I've got this award, but I'm hearing nothing. So I thought it might be a good idea for me to give you a little background of what happens so you can understand why it takes us a little while to get back with you. Those applications come to us in procurement, and then we start reviewing those, and we go through those. So I get my stack, and then I look at the first one, and I start going through and looking for any information that I need that may not be in there. So my request for you is I'm going to give you some examples of things from PIs that you could give us that would help that process go a little bit quicker. So what typically happens, we open it up, we look for information to fill out the package that we have to for approval, so that at the end of the day, we get it approved, and then we send you your award, and then we put the file away, and if it is audited, then we're all okay, because we've already done our due diligence on making sure that everything is accurate. The first thing we do is we look through that. If there's missing information, I write to the business office, and I also put the PI on there so that you know what we're missing. An example of that is complete budget justifications. Sometimes we get one sentence. That really is not sufficient for us. We need a little bit more information. For example, like when you give us a budget justification, we know you have a basis for that. So if you could give us the basis for your justification, how you came up with those numbers, that would be very helpful, because that's what we're going to end up asking you and your business office for. The other thing is we get quotes for equipment. So anything over $5,000, we need a quote. So if you can give us those up front, that's great. Otherwise, you might be asking for a piece of equipment. I'll go out on the internet looking for a price, and I really have no idea what this special instrument is you're buying. And typically I'll put it in and, you know, something will pop up, but then I don't get a price anyway. So it's very helpful. Something else that you get is we have user fees. Sometimes you use the equipment at the university and you're charged for that. I know sometimes we can find that on your website for your university, but not always. So we have to stop and ask for that. And if you can just give us the spreadsheet or whatever has your user fees on that, and then the website of the university, that's very helpful. The last thing on that would be the detailed breakdown of your travel. And I understand that you don't know where the next ANS conference is going to be in 2 years or next year. But you do know about what that's going to cost. So you know about, the registration, you know, the lodging, the per diem lodging, and those sorts of things. And I know that you have an estimate somewhere that you came up with that budget. If, say, you want $10,000, I know that you had to come up with something to put that in there. So the more information you give us, the much easier it is for us. And we don't have to come to you and ask for that information. What we usually do, what we always do, is when we send a note to the business office requesting information, is we put the PEI on there. And that way you know what we're asking for and what we're missing, and then you can submit that to us in a timely manner. Now, once these awards are approved through the system, they go to FedConnect. And in FedConnect is where your business office will download all of the documents. So some universities, from my understanding, they'll call and say, hey, great, you've got your award money, go spend it. But that's not what you're supposed to be doing. You need to contact your business office and say, hey, I need all of the documents that are sent with that award, because you're going to get an award, reporting requirements, you're going to get some other information like the point of contact sheets, terms and conditions, what you're expected to do, because now you are a steward of that money. And so now this gives you the parameters and the rules of how to spend that. And then we will be going over those documents here shortly that are with that award, so because they are a little overwhelming. So we have the federal reporting checklist. And if, Greg, if you want to hand that out, it's several pages and it is a little overwhelming. I know the first time I looked at it, I kind of scratched my head and wondered what this was all about. But the quarterly reporting is important, and it tells the story of what you're doing with your research. I know none of the PIs in here would ever do this, but occasionally we do get reports that are submitted and they've just changed the date. They keep submitting the same report over and over, and they don't ever update what they've done. So that's telling us, this university is not doing a lot of work because they just keep giving me the same report over and over. So, and there have been occasions they forget to change the date. So please be, cognizant that, it's showing the success of the PI and of the project of what you're doing when you submit those reports. So one other thing I wanted to make sure that you understand is when you don't, as a PI, when you're late with your reports, that looks bad for the PI, but it's for the university as well. So if you have, this PI that's giving everything in on time, you've got the university's looking great, but then you have another PI come along and they don't, 30% of the time, maybe they're submitting on time. That reflects negatively on the whole university. So then I have my third PI come in and he wants to submit for something. Well, we look at the reports and we say, well, this university is at risk because we've had a PI that is not either submitting reports or they're consistently late. So it's the university that gets, I guess, the bad grade, the bad mark. It's not, well, the PI, we know who you are, but the PI is also reflected on that. And if that happens, if you get a negative reporting requirements, then I looked up the 200 CFR 200.338, and it gives all the consequences of what happens, because the university would be considered high risk. And I know that everyone is finding the convenience in the drawdown of the funding, but what could happen is you go into a reimbursement mode. So you would have to spend the money, submit everything, and then you could be reimbursed for funding. We could require additional financial information, additional project reporting, or additional monitoring. And I know that's not anything that any of us want to happen. So just remember, it's really important to get your reports in on time. The other item on reporting is if you're a university that has a subaward or subrecipient, you are required to make sure that they do timely reporting. Because if they don't, it looks bad on the university. The awardee is the one that's taking the brunt of the, say, the subrecipient being late. So if you look at this federal assistance reporting checklist with the instructions, across the top, you know, have the identification number, which is your contract number, projectile, the recipient, but then you go to block 4. And that first item that's checked is your research performance progress report. And then you see frequency, you see a Q and an F. So Q, okay, that's quarterly, but then you have F. So if you look at the bottom of the page, there's a frequency code key. And for F, it says final. And then within 90 days after expiration or termination of award. So you're expected to turn that in within 90 days from the completion of your award. And then on the next column is the addresses. And then you see A, B, C, D. So it's like, okay, who's A, B, C, and D? If you go back to about 4 pages, here there is a listing of email addresses with A, B, C, and D, and those are the folks that need to receive, or the boxes that need to receive those reports. For example, the PSD, REPT at id.doe.gov. That's a very important one. What happens when these go in there, they get logged that you've submitted your reports. So what happens if you don't send it to the correct address? You'll get a notice because these are all system generated, and they'll say, hey, PI, you're a little late on your report. Please, you know, reminder, please submit these. We have PIs will call and say, wait, I submitted that report. Where is it? Well, the person that they'll call will say, oh, where did you submit that? And if you tell them the address and it's incorrect, you say, well, then that's the problem. We can log it and correct it. But there may be another problem. But typically, it's sent to the wrong address. So if you have questions on that, you can call any of us and we'll make sure that it gets directed correctly. Because if you take the time and you do a great report and you submit it, we want to make sure that you get credit for your. I'm going to turn over the time now to Dave, and he's going to come up and he's going to give you a detailed explanation of the reports. And then we'll be available after the presentation to answer any of your questions.
All right, thank you very much. I think I'm the last presenter here for the evening, so I know you guys have had a long day, so just assume if you start to fall asleep, it's because you're tired, not because I'm really boring. I'm Dave Yarwood. I'm with Allegheny Science and Technology. I'm the lead ASD program analyst for NEUP projects. I have with me Dave Bates, who's the analyst for the NEAT Cross-Cutting Technology Development Awards. So between the two of us, we're responsible for assisting the PIs with their quarterly reporting, as well as helping headquarters with their oversight. And we do that through a system called PICS-NE. What you all, the PIs, submit to us, we, along with Nick Case, will input that into PICS, and then that's how headquarters reviews that data. So I generate, update, distribute the work package forms and the research performance progress report, or RPPR templates. And I also maintain the reporting progress in PICS-NE for all of the review staff. And I prepare program reviews, and like I said, I assist you guys, which is my favorite part of the job. So I have my contact information up here. I've also got business cards. If you have any, if you'd like one, come see me afterwards. Excuse me. Great. So the first thing we talk about is the work package forms. After your award is officially awarded, I'll get a list from Aaron and from Nick that has all the PI's contact information. And I'll start generating these work package templates. And it's essentially your way of communicating your plan to complete your research.
So it has a statement or a space for you to put your scope statement and your objective statement, and then the meat of the template is budget and milestones. So you'll have a section where you list your milestones, and then within each milestone you'll define your spend plan for it, which is how much you expect to spend over the amount of time, and the deliverable description. So the deliverable is what demonstrates that you've completed that milestone. There are two types of milestones that we use within an NEAP program, major or minor. A major milestone is generally completed with a technical report, something very formal, maybe a journal article, whereas a minor milestone is more informal deliverable. It could just be, hey, we are gonna acquire this piece of equipment. Here's a receipt that shows that we acquired it and that it does what it says it was going to do. Most of the projects have between 9 and 12 milestones. Some folks like to go into more detail, but and also the DOE review staff could come back to you and say, hey, you only listed 5. We'd really like to see you have at least 2 per year or 3 per year, and it depends on the technical point of contact and the NTD and what they want out of it. And then again, the deliverable it'll have a description where you kind of estimate at the beginning of the project what is the end of this milestone going to look like. So for the budget for each one of those milestones, it's going to be broken out by month. And at the end of it all, when you've budgeted all your money, it's going to equal to everything, all of the funding that you received. So that it does include any collaboration you have with national labs. So if you have, if the university are awarded 800K, but only 700 is coming to you and 100K is going to INL, you have to include all of that in your spend plan. So obviously you can only spend money up to the project end date. Even though the final report is due 90 days afterwards, you can't budget anything past that project end date. And then just as a general tip, what I've seen through the past couple of years of working with NEUP is that the costs have a tendency to be very slow, very little at the beginning, and then to kind of ramp up very quickly. A lot of universities, a lot of, awards have had difficulties recruiting students at the beginning of their awards. And on top of that, there's a bit of a delay in the reporting between the university submitting the invoices and then DOE ID updating their cost accounting systems. So just prepare your spend plan accordingly. Be very conservative at the beginning of the project, I would say, and just the worst thing that can happen is you just have to write a little explanation each quarter that says, hey, this is why we're ahead or behind schedule as far as spending goes. So once your work package is completed, it gets submitted and approved, and then we move into quarterly reporting. So what I'm going to focus on here is 2 specific things: the research performance progress report, which is actually what I'm going to talk about in most detail, and then there's also a brief quad chart that's required each quarter as well. And they're both, well, the quad chart is pretty self-explanatory. The RPPR has a big list of instructions with it, and the 46, what's the checklist that was just passed around has all of the instructions for the RPPR in there. But I also send out, when I send out each quarter your reporting templates, I send out the instructions with it, and I also make sure that in the Excel file, which you'll be filling out with your report, the boxes have comments in them, so you can actually just refer right to it there. So try to make it easy on you as possible to refer to everything. I'm not going to walk through every single line in the report because I really don't want you guys to pass out that badly. But I'm just going to hit on a couple of highlights that I've seen throughout the past 2 years we've been using these RPPR templates, and just some things I just wanted you all to take with you going forward. There's a cover sheet at the very beginning. It has in there the addresses and the subject line to use when you submit it, and that's so that everybody who is required to receive the report gets it, and it also has the right information in the subject so they know how to file it. Otherwise, if you don't do that, sometimes you get a report back from or an email back from Thorian saying, hey, which award is for this? Is this for? And just trying to make it easy for you, just copy that subject line and paste it in there, and when you send it out. So also, you should include a signed cover sheet. This is a formal report from your university, so you want to put your signature on it. It says that everything in there is something that you did and you kind of stand behind. So the workbook, when you get it, make sure you complete all the fields, especially the first time around. A lot of the fields are not going to change between quarters. And when I send it to you, once you complete the first quarterly report, when I send you the second quarter template, it's going to have all your information from the first quarter in there. And the only things that I'll take out is in the objectives, or excuse me, on the accomplishments page, there's what did you accomplish this quarter? Well, I'm going to delete that out so you can change that. And then what do you expect to accomplish next quarter? I'll delete that out so you can add that in there. Everything else in there will be there. As far as there is a section for students and collaborators, if you want to keep a list of all the students who work on the project, headquarters keeps a tally on how many students they support, where they come from, what their ultimate degree is going to be. So, and then whether they travel abroad, who they work with, those kind of things. So that's all included in there. We do ask that you keep all the students who start off with your project, even if they leave the project after a couple of months, just keep them in there, and then you can make a note that student John left after 2 months or something along those lines. And there's another tab in there which has changes and problems. This is where you discuss any issues you may be having with your projects, and so just want to make sure that you guys, if you're having difficulty meeting your milestones or your milestone due dates, that you update that section as well and explain it there. So the last tab of the RPPR template is the cost and schedule status, and so this one is the one that I put some pretty colors in. But so I get the milestones from your work package template you sent in at the very beginning of the project, and then you get they get listed all on the left hand side, and then you get the status, your budget, start and end date, how much what your percent complete is, revised and actual finish dates, and then you do the narrative. So if it's on schedule, then everything's good. You don't really have to worry about anything. You don't have to put in a revised finish date. You don't have to put in a narrative. It's all good. If it's complete, and there's a little drop down box on the status there, which you can see on the screen. You click on that drop down, you'll get the options there. If it's complete, all you need to do is just fill out the actual finish date and submit the associated deliverable, and then we'll mark that complete, submit the deliverable in pics for everyone to review, and you'll be done with that. If you're going to be late, if you're expecting something late or it is late, you have those options in there as well. And then what we ask you to do there is update your estimated percent complete. And what that does is that drives the percentage of the budget that you've earned on that. And so we also ask you to provide a revised finish date, whether it's just a 1 month or 2 month delay, or whether it's going to be 6 months or a year or something along those lines. And then the narrative field as well, just to explain why this is expected late, or if it's ahead of schedule, if you were able to get the lab time before you anticipated and you're going to knock something out early, you also want to put that in there. When I send these reports, if there's a milestone due, what I'll be in that cell, it'll say update needed. So please don't leave it as update needed. Please update it so it says complete or it says expected late, and that way I don't have to send it back to you and ask you, okay, is it done or is it not done? All right, and then at the bottom of the cost and schedule status is the cost variance section, and this mostly is all pre-populated. All you have to worry about is that bottom cell that says cost variance explanation. I'll give you a quick, explanation of how it's calculated. This first section right here is actually from the work package template, and you say, okay, this is a milestone. It starts in April of FY 2020 and ends in October of 2021. So if in September of 2020 it's on schedule, then it's earned $14,700. If it's expected late, but it's only 50% complete, then rather than saying it's equal to that, then we're going to take the 50% of that total budget, and that's what it's going to come out to, in this example, 85 or 8450. So there's a little bit of math involved, but again, just use your best judgment when estimating your percent complete, and just know that that does reflect on your cost variance, because that does populate the value earned. So before you get to this point in your spreadsheet, make sure you complete the milestone status, because once again, if you do change those percents or you change something from completed to expectedly, then that's going to change the cost variance. I mentioned before that I get the actual cost from DOE ID. So they usually come in sometime between the 6th and 7th business day of the month. And then as soon as I get those actual costs, then I'll populate these templates and send them out. And keep in mind, there's generally a delay in receiving the invoices and getting them processed. So your end of quarter actual costs that I get from DOE ID are not going to match what you have at your university. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at these. And if you have those actual numbers from your university, you may want to include that in your explanation if there is a variance that's over 10% and 25K. So a variance explanation is required if the cost variance exceeds 10% and 25K plus or minus. So once again, just working with your business office and making sure you know how much you've spent and where you are in your spend plan, if you're ahead or behind. Again, you start off thinking that everything's going to go great, and then 6 months down the road things change. You'll have to write a little explanation here and there, but as long as the work is still getting done, nobody's going to have too much to say about it. So my last in closing slide here, which is going to give everybody, I'm going to get a big round of applause when I say in closing, right? Quarterly, yearly final reporting, they're all essential to continued support of the research. Making sure that the taxpayers are getting what they're spending their money on. But what I really want to say is that I'm really eager to help you all as much as I can, because I know that your time is valuable, and the less time you spend fiddling around with spreadsheets, the more time you can spend in labs and with students and doing research. So I encourage you to contact me with any questions, and I look forward to helping you out as best I can. So with that, I'll turn over to you.
I'll have you come right back up here.
Okay.
I'd like to thank all our speakers today. I'd like to have John, Aaron, and Joanne join us here at the table. I know we've had several questions that have come in through the magic of the internet. So we'll take a little bit of a concerted approach to answer questions here in the room and those that are on the net. As soon as Julie gets situated, we'll go ahead and start with something from the net. Nick, thank you. Okay, Julie, what's our first question?
Okay, the first question, what is the procedure to request a no-cost extension for a project that will be ended in March?
Aaron, you want to handle that for us? Microphone right here.
So you need to go to the neup.gov website, and on the website you'll find information that explains the procedure. But there's a template that you would complete there, or pull down from the website and then complete and send that to both myself and Nick Case. I believe our emails on the form. Yeah, they're on the form. So you would just submit that, and please be thorough and complete the form. And again, the deadline for submitting that would be April 15th.
Okay. Julie, next.
Okay, second question. Can I serve as a lead PI for one R&D application and a co-PI for another R&D application? And it says the two R&D applications will cover totally different research topics.
Yes, absolutely you can. If I have a question here in the room, go ahead and put your hand up and we'll mix them in as we go.
Okay, next question. What kind of reasons are unacceptable for no-cost extensions?
Aaron, do you want to handle that one as well? Unacceptable reasons for a no-cost extension.
Certainly, if the reason you want a no-cost extension is because you just have money left on the table, that's not a good reason. Another reason might be that one of the things that I know is important is the sponsorship and the support of students, and that certainly isn't a sole reason to place in the no. Certainly has to be related to completion of the work. And if you have no money left on the table, there's also no room to continue in the award for a no-cost extension. So just a couple of examples, but certainly we're looking for your honest request, and that there's important work that needs to be accomplished, and that you still have funding to support that, and you'd like to have a little bit more time to get it done.
Okay, next.
Okay, who should submit the no-cost extension request, and does it have to be the PI? Can a co-PI submit a no-cost extension?
That should be the PI that submits the no-cost extension. Certainly the PI should submit it. The co-PI should be aware of that. If it is the co-PI that requires the no-cost extension, it will still be the PI that submits the request. Aaron, anything to add?
Just to add, there is a requirement if your subawardee is a FFRDC National Lab, they need to submit a request separate, and that should go to again Nick and myself, and we'll get that to the appropriate people that will make the help get that in place. The funding that goes directly to the lab follows a little bit of a different process, as most of you probably understand and know. Those are direct funded. Even if they're a sub-award, it's a direct fund from DOE for a variety of different reasons. But because of that, there's a process on how those are awarded. It's through the budget office at DOE, and those need to be extended in just a little bit of a different way with a different approval. So that would be the only variance.
Aaron, thank you.
Okay, in the very first webinar, it's mentioned that for an NEUP proposal, having a national laboratory collaboration is highly recommended. But in the last week's webinar, it was mentioned that national lab collaboration is not mandatory. Which one should I consider seriously?
It is not required. Partnerships are always a good thing to have. We would recommend that you have partners that add to your proposal. National labs are not required, industry is not required, additional universities are not required, but certainly if they add benefit to your application, we would certainly encourage you to add them.
I would just add there that we track all of this, of course, and it's about 50% of the proposals that are awarded do have national lab partners, but also there's about 20% that have industry partners too. But again, it's not required. You can be successful and not have either one of those as partners.
Okay, can you explain how the cost variance works?
Dave?
All right, so it's a math question. The spend plan that you submit at the beginning of your project with the milestone-based spend plan, if everything is on schedule, then what your planned cost up to that month would be is the sum of all of your budgeted cost up to that point. So if you have 2 milestones that are going on currently and you're spending $4,000 per month, for 6 months on both of them, you'd have, do math in my head while in front of people, 48. So you have 48,000 planned. If you've only spent 24,000 of that, then you've got a variance of I forgot what number I used. 24,000. Yeah. So you got a variance of 50%. So that's if everything is on schedule in the way you've set it up. You could also have milestones that are behind schedule. And then instead of using the spend plan, what it uses is a percent of the actual or of the total budget for that milestone. So if you have, I'm going to use round numbers this time. If you have a milestone for 50K and you're 50% complete, then your plan value would be 25K. So if you spent more than that, then you'd have the cost variance there. And if it's if the total of the cost variance for your project is greater than 10%, greater than or less than 10%, greater than plus or minus 10%, and greater greater, plus or minus 25,000, then a short explanation is required. So.
And we will have all these slides posted on the net with the recording. So as an example, this slide will be there if it helps you work through that issue. You can always call our office. Nick would be happy to get that answer for you, or you could call Allegheny direct.
Okay, next question. Why does the total cumulative value earned equal only the September dollar amount? Is it because it is a starting of a new fiscal year?
Dave, that's in your example here on the screen.
So in the example, what I use is that, say that in the month of September of 2020, so the cumulative plan value there would be that 14,700 for all of the months there, for April, May, June, July, August, and September. So that's the total of that if it's on schedule as of September 2020.
So I think the math would be the same, whether this rolled up to the September, October, or whether it was happening back earlier in the year. So if the question had to do with the change of fiscal, I don't believe that would be an issue in this example. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's for the entirety of the milestone. So it's not just by fiscal year.
Okay.
And what if the expense occurred a couple of months ago? However, the invoice was sent to the sponsor 2 months later. Should the expenses be included in the current period or in a prior period?
So I think that's a question of delayed billing through either the company from which you purchased something or in terms of relationship with your business office. And if I could restate the question as I understand it, the question would be, should they report the expense when they know they have it or when they receive the invoice? Is that a fair summary?
So the cost came in from DOE.
Yeah, I guess that I get the actual cost information from DOE Idaho, so I don't know exactly how they receive the costs as far as how the billing and invoicing goes through DOE ID.
So do keep in mind that if you have a plus or minus 10% variance that would be reported in this bottom block, that may be something that you add to that block in terms of having that variance. You have already received the expense, you've expensed it on your account, but it has not yet been invoiced, if that helps the explanation.
Yeah, and if that doesn't, you can reach me, Dave Yarwood, and I can get with Kendall at DOE ID and get you a better answer to that question.
Okay.
Okay, what advice could you provide for a situation where a co-PI at a national lab may lose his job position over the course of the project due to lack of funding for other research? National lab, well, they just kind of repeated it again. So that's
going to be a complicated issue. Certainly at a national laboratory, an individual may not have full coverage through one of these projects to continue that work. So there would be several options associated with that. If that relationship with the laboratory employee was terminated by the laboratory, there may be other individuals there that could continue that work in terms of the instrumentation and the facilities that are available. Certainly there may be some specifics in that question and nuances, and you would have to address that on a case-by-case basis. Aaron, Joanne, anything to add to that?
That's correct.
Okay, I think we've exhausted the questions, the current questions from the internet. Do we have any questions here from the audience? We're competing with Halloween. Yes, we have a question.
So are there any restrictions or additional requirements for non-US citizens that apply for NUP?
So the question is, are there additional restrictions on citizenship for PIs when applying for an NUP?
I assume you're at a university. You just have to make sure that you're authorized by your university, excuse me, to submit proposals. Whether you're a U.S. citizen or not, you're in the right visa category that you can receive, be a PI at your university, and they make that determination. And if they make that determination, then it's okay with us.
So just as follow-on information to that, universities are responsible for export compliance, which can be a very delicate, complicated issue. And there will be several things besides the nationality of the PI that can intersect into that equation, but universities do have the responsibility for export compliance. Any other questions here in the room?
One more question from the web. How many awards are expected this time around?
We don't have an estimate of the number of awards that would be made this time around. Quite frankly, there just isn't a budget that exists with that yet. For planning purposes, we're looking at about the same number that were made last year. However, that is just for planning purposes in terms of trying to cite the FOA and get it on the ground. There is no firm estimate or expectation on the number of awards that would be made. John, anything to add?
Well, I mean, certainly it's our intent that for every work scope that we put out there, that there will be an award, at least one award in each work scope. That's the intent. There could be more or there could be less. So it just, again, depends upon budget and priorities when all that's decided in March or April, when, you know, whenever we get that final call.
What if a co-PI from a sub-awardee institute left the job? The proposed new PI by the institute does not have the qualification.
So it would be the new sub, the new co-PI at the institution doesn't have the qualifications?
You can request that the university, that it's unacceptable and that they submit a new name. And if that continues to be a problem, then certainly reach out to myself or to Joanne, and we can help walk you through a process that will get you to a place where you need to be in the award.
I'd like to thank everybody here in the room that attended, especially our speakers. We've had great representation from Allegheny Science and Technology, who gave up personal time, family, and trick-or-treating, I might add, to be here with us. David and David, thank you so much. Aaron and Joanne from DOE Idaho, they've come a long way. They're very involved in the awards that are made, the back end of the process. Certainly John, as always, is available to you to answer questions, get that important information to DOE. I'd like to recognize Nick Case from our office. He's generally a first line of contact. People that haven't been on camera but are here and prepared to answer questions include the cohort staff from NSUF, including Rory Kennedy, their director, Brendan Heidrich, Jeff Benson. I think we have others. We also have Shereen Novich from our staff here in the room. So certainly everybody who's here, thank you so much for attending. We'll have the entire thing recorded with transcript of question and posted to the web so that it can be viewed as a resource at a later point in time. Any closing remarks, John?
No, we're looking forward to an exciting round of proposals coming in. I know you're all thinking about it, and so please, we encourage you to submit good proposals this time, and we're looking forward to working with you.
Thank you.